All right, a very good evening, everyone. Hello, hello. I would like to acknowledge traditional caretakers and ancestors for these lands we reside on in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the 19 pueblos, and wherever you're beaming in from. We'd like to acknowledge your traditional caretakers and ancestors of these lands. So we're very grateful that we can all be here this evening. Indigenous Ways is dedicated to bridging cultural exchange with people globally. And we are very, very excited to acknowledge Native American Heritage Month. And the presenters here this month, which you can read more about at our website. We are honoring Native Heritage Month. We've been posting 2 Indigenous presenters on our Facebook page daily, and we will continue to do this for November. And they have all blessed us with their Indigenous wisdom and medicine through our virtual events in these hard times. So, thank you. And if you've noticed anything different about our background, ta-da! I'll be telling you more about this beautiful background in that commercial break where after Frank talks, I'll tell you all about how you'll be able to have this blanket potentially. Okay, so I'd like to get this evening started with our very special, special, special guest of honor, Frank. And his last name is really, really interesting. Ettawageshik. I said it wrong.
Ettawageshik. Yes.
Ettawageshik. Okay, I was close. There is way too much to say about Frank. There's no way I could do it in this hour, even to talk about all of the wonderful movements and uh, empowering uh, events that Frank has been involved with for our people. He's a Michigan native from the Little Traverse Band, Bay Band of the Odawa tribe. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking and let Frank take over. And we're going to enjoy Frank for about 35, 40 minutes. And then we will, as usual, invite all of you to join us after our commercial break. Thank you. Welcome, Frank. Woo!
All right. Thank you. Uh, Ani, Pipigwa Ododem, Waganak Sing Adonjaba, Nakwegishik, Indijnakas. I said, hello. Uh, I'm the sparrowhawk is the mark of my family. And I'm from the land of the crooked tree, which is in northern Michigan here. And my name is Noonday, otherwise known as Frank Ettawageshik. I've spent, someone once asked me what my goal in life was, and I thought about it for a while, and eventually I came to understand what it is. It's to be a good human being. And part of being a good human being is to become a good ancestor. So you work through your life to do those things. In this process, I've worked as an artist. I do traditional woodland Indian pottery. Uh, I'm I have been very unsuccessful in learning how to say no. So I've been very active in lots of different boards and other activities at the local level, at the tribal level, at the state level, at the national level and international level, where I've worked on all sorts of issues that are of importance to Indian country, intellectual property, climate change, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and water accords throughout the state, working on international issues, cross boundary and the Great Lakes. All of these are different things that I've had a chance to work on, but they all come down to, and I've been very privileged to do that. I also served, and I would be remiss to not mention this, but I'm a recovering politician. I was the chairman of my tribe for 14 years and the vice chair for a couple of years before that. I spent a number of years where I was not in office at the tribe, and recently I was appointed as one of the 3 appellate justices to the tribe's Supreme Court. So it's over the last 20 years, I've been very involved in tribal government, but also involved in the cultural and spiritual side of our tribe, attending ceremonies and doing different things. Uh, I'm a student of our language, although I don't speak fluently. I know a lot of words that I'm learning, and as an adult learner, that is difficult. I was one of the many whose parents did not teach them the language. And so as adults now we're struggling to relearn that. When we have our ceremonies, considering that this is Veterans Day here in the United States, when we have our ceremonies, we're always we're honoring the veterans. When we go to a powwow, there'll be a veterans dance to honor the veterans, and we have we think about this a lot, and there'll be a lot of the to honor those veterans who have served and given their lives, and also to honor those who are in harm's way on this on any given day, and to we pray for them. But I had an experience this last summer that was of great importance to me, and that is I had just said some prayers in honoring the veterans, and I started feeling quite so let's just say I was getting messages from the spirits who weren't angry, but were quite forceful about the fact when they said, "What about us?" And I realized that we also need to, when we do this, we need to be remembering all of those warriors who, through countless centuries, from time immemorial, have fought to protect our peoples, to protect our way of life, to bring us to where we are today. And that we need to think of them when we're honoring those veterans. We need to think of them in that same way. So I learned from that experience, and I had to apologize to those ancestors for not saying those things that should be said, and for not remembering them in my prayers as I said them. And so I did a pipe, and I put some tobacco down in the sacred fire, and I promised that I would make sure that whenever I was honoring veterans, I would always remember all those from before those times, from those ancestors who helped bring us to where we are today. So I thought those were appropriate words to be thinking about on Veterans Day today, that was such an important part of our culture. I think about what it means to fight to protect our people. And that is, there's people who have fought many different kinds of battles. There clearly are the combat veterans and the folks that fought those wars, but we have also to remember all of those who have fought to protect our people amongst for other types of threats, the whole threats from drug abuse and alcohol, those threats that from all the different things that happened to us through colonization, on how we need to be strengthening our communities, be doing things to encourage that the reawakening and understanding and passing on of those traditional values that we have. So when we think about those people who did that, and those ancestors, for instance, I think about those ancestors, those warriors who were negotiating and fighting for those treaties. Some people would look at those, and I've heard people say, well, those people who signed the treaties, they really didn't have our best interest at heart. They signed away our rights and all these other things. And we think about it, that actually they were negotiating in a very tough time. And I look at them and I honor them because they've protected things for us. And as an example, those rights that we fight for today in our courts and all the other places that we're doing this, those rights today, the courts are looking at those, and in US v. Michigan, in a fishing rights case, we have access to 50% of the fish in the lake, for instance, and the courts have looked at all these as property rights. But I maintain that there's a whole other way to think about this. Those rights that those warriors, those ancestors helped to protect. Because when they looked out and they were getting ready to sign those treaties, they reserved the right to fish. And of course, under the canons of construction, treaties are to be interpreted the way the Indians would have understood at the time they signed, not the way some attorneys might parse those words today. And so those today the courts have interpreted that as a property right. Well, that's true, and I don't want to dispute the fact that those things are there. Our worldview was not that, because when our ancestors were preserving those rights in the treaties. They didn't look at those waters like the waters that are behind me here over Lake Michigan. They didn't look out there and say, those are our fish. They didn't do that. What they did is they reserved the right to fish. And when they did that, they reserved the right to sing for the fish, to dance for the fish, to pray for the fish, to catch and eat the fish, but to live with the fish, to honor the fish, and to respect the fish. The fish provide sustenance, but we also respect them, and it's right back and forth. We take care of each other. And so that whole thing with fish, it's a relationship right, that right to fish that our ancestors reserved in those treaties. And so that's the way our understanding would be, that it is that relationship right. So, but that, you think about it, I just talked about fish. But what about air? What about water? What about all of the rest of the natural world? What about the night sky? That view of the night sky is precious to us. It's a resource. It's something that's valuable to us. There's a relationship we have with that night sky. There's a relationship to that natural world. I maintain that all of those are wrapped up in those treaty rights. And since the federal government has said that they have become the trustee now, in the three cases that Justice Marshall did, the Marshall Trilogy in the 1830s, there's this doctrine of dependent domestic sovereignty that they talk about tribes having that. We got to realize that that's the United States and their view of us, that we are dependent domestic sovereigns. As a tribal leader, I can tell you, I did not feel dependent or domestic. I did feel sovereign. I got to understand that our people, we maintain that we're sovereign. That's our understanding. Now we're negotiating the acceptance of that sovereignty with the United States. And part of that has happened through the interpretation of the Supreme Court and other cases, all the way up to the recent McGirt case that just happened in Oklahoma. These are important things for us, but that is not who we are necessarily, because we are that sovereign and have that inherent sovereignty, inherent rights of those relationships with the natural world. And those relationships with each other, all the indigenous people all over the earth have relationships with each other. And we relate in the same way. Our ceremonies may differ slightly in name, they may differ in exactly the way we do it or how we dress, but they are honoring the same thing. They're honoring those relationships. So I think about that and think about how important that is. When I'm thinking about veterans on Veterans Day, I'm thinking about how that, what it is that they fought for, what it is that they did for us, and what that means to us today. Now, we're also taught to think about the consequences of our actions through a time period long enough to encompass 7 generations. And I like to think about that as not just that it's 7 generations out, you can count them, well, we're in the 3rd or the 4th or whatever. But the way I think of it is that if you're driving down the road at night and your headlights are going ahead of you, every 100 yards you go down the road, your headlights go another 100 yards down the road. And that 7 generations is a time period in front of us. It's a buffer in front of us that we're to think of. We're to think of, what does it mean? What are the actions that we take going to do to help bring that about, to help bring things to happen in those 7 generations? And what do we do that's going to help them and leave good things for those coming generations? But we also, each and every one of us here listening to this, each one of us is someone's 7th generation. What were those ancestors doing 7 generations ago? What did they leave for us? Where did they move? What did they teach their children? You know, what did they teach those grandparents all the way down through the line that came?
Looks like we got a freeze here, Frank. Let's give it a second.
I'm waiting for this to unfreeze there. It looks like it's unfrozen now. Can you hear me again?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Very good. What did those ancestors do that brought us to this meeting right now? What did they do to bring us right to this place? Because whatever they did got everybody here tonight. And what are we doing that's going to get people in the future? So when we think about those things, we're talking about balance. We're talking about balance in time, and that's an important thing to think about. You know, it's important to think about us having this spot in our life. Everything we're doing is part of that 7 generations from before and part of that 7 generations that is coming after us. But we don't get to that seventh generation after us if we don't treat this generation well and we don't get into the next generation. So it's really important for us to think about how we tell our stories, how we tell these things, how we express those concerns of our cultures. You know, we talk about the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, and as those 4 direction teachings, we talk about earth, fire, wind, and water also in those 4 directions. And we think about the idea that we need to be balanced. I once heard a story from someone that really helped demonstrate this to me. And they said that the goal in our lives should be to be standing in the middle of the world. Standing in the middle of the world to me means that we're balancing all of those 4 direction teachings coming together to be standing in the middle. We're not too far down any one of those directions off. We're not dealing too much with the mental at the express at the at the we we don't want to be down this road where we're all consumed by mental activity and not being involved in the physical. We don't want to be doing this where we're praying all the time, but we're not we're not working out at all and taking the health of our bodies. We need to be thinking about what it means to be balanced, and to achieve that harmony or that balance is really important for us as we work through these things. I thought about this a lot while we were talking a lot about water protectors, and we were talking about the whole issues of how do we honor one of these elements, these 4 elements that we have, earth, fire, wind, and water. How do we honor the water and protect the water? And we had water protectors. We're doing that. But at the same time, we had water protectors. We need fire protectors. We need earth protectors. We need air protectors. We need to have people who realize that we have to do, you can't do one at the expense of the others. They all are tied together, and we have to be balanced in the way we do this. And then we will be successful. Now, I've taken this idea of balance and thinking between these directions, and I've taken that actually to apply it to, for instance, a tribal budget. Now, that may seem like a stretch, but you apply it to a tribal budget and you see where you're spending your money as a tribe. And are you spending your money in a balanced way in the community? And if your community is out of balance, often people will take and spend more money in the way that it appears to be out of balance because they really think it needs more attention. But sometimes it's out of balance because you're not spending enough money in other areas. So you need to analyze how you're spending your money. And so you can think of this analyzing your personal budget or a family budget or whatever. You can do these things to try to figure out how that's going to tie in to looking at such mundane things as a budget compared to our traditional teachings. How do you mesh those things together? We have to be able to figure out how to do that because we have different worldviews, but there is a place where they can connect. And those difference in worldviews, I think of Vine Deloria's The Metaphysics of Modern Existence, or Gregory Kahedi's Native Science. These are books, really good books about that difference in worldview and how that affects our decisions. I recommend both of those as great books. They helped me a lot. I'm currently reading Braiding Sweetgrass. I can't believe I waited this long to read that, but also talking about that difference in worldview, that view between science and others. I had to write an introduction uh, for something that's coming out as a report, but for the triennial assessment of progress for the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement through the International Joint Commission, which was founded by the Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909. That's between Canada and the US. It's a big, long thing, but in the end, I was asked to write an Indigenous introduction. And I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs that I'd written about that. One is understanding the natural world as relatives and not as property is fundamental to our Indigenous way of being. We are but one of the members of a vast natural world family. We do not own the earth or the beings who live within, upon, or above it. We respect our relatives and strive to do them no harm. In return, they help provide us sustenance, shelter, and healing. And the end is that this report's a measure of accomplishment, not only in the science of water, but also in achieving balance in our lives and the lives of all our relatives. It's that kind of view where you're taking something that is it's a document uh, from what can be very dry and long meetings, tedious meetings, trying to add soul to it and give a perspective to it, where you can see that we're touching not only the minds of the people who read it, but we're touching their hearts and their souls as well, and we're encourage them to have physical interaction with the waters. These are the kind of things that we can do when we take those wonderful teachings that our ancestors have passed down in so many different ways with so many different tribes all over the country and around the world. These teachings they hold within them the salvation of mankind, because fundamental to all of them is respect. And lack of respect for the natural world is what's gotten us into the mess that we're in. Lack of respect is what's gotten us to this place where uh, we can't drink the water from that stream because, well, it's polluted. So we go to the next stream. Well, when all the streams get polluted, what do? And we have the same kind of thing. We're dealing with it. We have one world that's got it. We have a changing climate. What are we doing to work on that? So I've had the occasion to speak at various different things in my life. I had the honor of being selected to give the closing remarks for the Indigenous Caucus at the Paris climate talks. And so at the closing plenary session, I gave the last speech that night, the closing speech. And that's a polite way of saying that Indigenous people got to speak last. Everybody else got to speak before we did. But nevertheless, being last, you're remembered. And I think that it was a good thing for us to be in that position. I gave a speech which I delivered on behalf of the caucus. I didn't write it, but I did add some touches to it myself. But we got 2 minutes. I took 3, by the way, but we had 2, and it was that was the kind of remarks that we were able to give about what we felt about the Paris Accord. And now it's still in the news today because our president-elect has now talked about how important that is to us. It's really important to think about these kind of things, those issues of climate. For climate means to us, getting back to the fish, in Lake Michigan, it's about 1.5 degrees in temperature from where it will no longer be the natural habitat of the whitefish. It's a primary fish that we catch here in the Great Lakes. It's a wonderful eating fish, and it's used to be in such abundance that it was a major food source for us. And it's also what our commercial fishermen catch and sell. But Lake Michigan is getting very close to no longer being able to naturally have whitefish. And so to us, this is critical. These are the kind of things that we have because these are our relatives. And we don't want to do things that cause them harm and cause them to no longer be able to live where they need to live. And so I think about all of this stuff and how I wanted to mention I did mention briefly the International Joint Commission, and that we've been working for years to get a more indigenous voice there. And for the first time in history, Henry Lickers, he's Haudenosaunee. He was appointed as one of the 6 commissioners to the International Joint Commission. He's currently serving. And this is the first time there's been an indigenous citizen of a tribe who's been a member, who's been one of the commissioners. There also are a number of people who are on the Great Lakes Water Quality Board. There's 4 of us who serve on that capacity there, indigenous. The indigenous voices are really getting stronger and they're being accepted. We're being asked for our opinions more. And we believe that those traditional teachings that we have that guide us will help us to ensure that those people coming 7 generations from us now, that those people will have fish to eat. They'll have water to be in. They'll have a world to live in. And we're working, that's our goal, to be able to do those things. One of the things that I learned, some people say, well, that may be impossible to do those. But I learned a few things in my life, in the politics that working. I jokingly tell people I wore 3 pairs of shoes out walking in the halls of Congress in Washington, D.C., trying to educate otherwise uneducated or well-educated people, but uneducated on the points of Indian law, where we talk about what that relationship is between tribes and the United States. And this was one of the things I've done pretty much my whole life, had to train people to this extent. And that is the Article 1, Section 8, the 3rd clause is the Commerce Clause. And it says Congress shall have the power to, and then there's the 3rd clause, that's to regulate commerce amongst the several states with the foreign nations and with the Indian tribes. And that's the acknowledgement in the U.S. Constitution of the pre-existent sovereignty of tribal governments. And there's only 3 sovereigns mentioned, and we're one of them, and that's that acknowledgement. And then, what's the supremacy clause? It's Article 6, that says that this Constitution and all laws made pursuant to this Constitution, and all treaties made or which shall be made, no matter what any state to constitution or law, they can't pass a law that disagrees with this, that those treaties are the supreme law of the land, along with the Constitution. So what that means is that, and it also says no judge can ignore that. So those are the fundamental parts of the federal relationship, tribal relationship. And that helps us. It helps our attorneys that work with us. It helps the leaders who have to do this work with people. It helps us to promote that inherent sovereignty. But we always have to remember who we are. We have to remember how it is that we came to be here, that it was those ancestors, those warriors and the leaders, those grandmothers, and all of those people together who lived their lives in harmony and lived their lives in good ways and faced tremendous challenges and were able to overcome them so that we're here today. And we have to remember those things. So once again, one of those things I wanted to mention is that once again, being on Veterans Day, it's just so, we have to remember all those people who came before. I am so happy to be able to be here to speak. I'm getting fairly close to the end of my time here to speak. I know we're going to have time for questions. I'd really like to be able to engage questions from folks and things of that sort. I wanted to tell a story yet before I end about things that we have done at, say, at the international level, and the power of our culture, the power of our collective culture, not just from one tribe or one.
Frank, it looks like we froze up, and just FYI, we got 10.
Okay, let's see here. I'm waiting until can you hear me yet? I see the interpreter going. As soon as can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good. You're
Oh,
back in.
I was going to tell you this story that happened during the negotiation at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We were in Bonn, Germany. We were negotiating for the implementing of the facilitative working group that was going to implement, and still is to implement, the local communities and indigenous peoples platform from the Paris Accord. And we had probably 150 indigenous people at this meeting. And we had representatives of all the different countries, and they negotiate by groups. So there may be 8 countries in one group, but I'll have one country or two that are in the room negotiating, and the rest are in other rooms negotiating other issues. So in the room, we probably had about, maybe 100 people sitting around a great big square table. And we had negotiated for hours. And then we negotiated for hours more the next day. And it was getting late in the evening. On the last day we had before we had to make a decision to be done. This was on I think it was a Thursday night. We had to be done before Friday. And we were negotiating, and the tension in the room was really high. And 3 countries were out in the hall, um, verbally engaged aggressively with each other over some really sticking points that might have actually ended the whole negotiations, had ended the negotiations on 2 occasions before this. And they were in the hall doing this, and we were all sitting in the room. And without any plan whatsoever at all, one of the Sami relatives, the indigenous people of, I think this fellow was from Finland, stood up and sang a song. And then a Pasquayaki woman who from the U.S. got up and sang a song. I sang a song from the Great Lakes. And a woman from Malaysia got her iPad out and put it up by the microphone, held it up there and had music, and she did a traditional dance. And as we did this and passed this singing around the room for all the indigenous people, the tension in the room fell and relaxed, and the room really just relaxed. And after we were all done, in walked the folks from the hall, said that they'd solved the problem, and we were done. Well, they might have thought they did it. We think we did it by singing those songs and relying on our traditions and relying on touching the spirit and the heart of the folks, not only in the room, but our singing could be heard outside the room where these guys were working. And so we think that that's an example of how our traditions can be brought to bear in an international arena that will be helpful to work on things. And so there's I see I'm even closer now to the end of my time. I'm watching over here, and I'd like to sing the song that I sang at that meeting. And this is a water song. It's a song that was that's been given to everybody, men, women, children, everybody, to sing by the person who made this song. And the words are, water, water, we love you, we thank you, and we respect you. And I'm going to sing that song now. Nibe gijage go, gimme gwetchawe nimigo, gijawe nimigo. Nibe gijage go. Gimigwachoweni migo. Gijaweni migo. Nibe gijage go. Gimigwachoweni migo. Gijaweni migo. Nibe gijage go. Gimigwachoweni migo. Gijaweni migo. Oh, miigwech. I thank you for this
Jo-
opportunity to speak to you.
Joni, yeah, thank you very much. That was very beautiful, Frank. Thank you for your time this evening. And I'd like to just take this time to let you all know that we've been blessed with our elder, our brother from the Michigan lands. And we are going to acknowledge your ancestors, the Little Traverse Bay Band of the Odawas, pretty impressive tribe of group of us native people up there in Michigan. So thank you. And we're really excited about next week. We have a sister coming in, and her name is Renee Romanos. She is Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes from Oklahoma. So please tune in next week, same time for Renee. And right above me, IndigenousWays.org has all that information. Just Google it and have fun with that pretty user friendly website. And we would love for you to share this recorded video with everyone, which will be available in the next 48 hours on our website. There you will also find over 60 Indigenous presenters and artists. And you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Go to our IndigenousWays.org website and click on sign up for newsletter, and then you'll have all the happenings that we have going on. And down below, we have all our social media sites. You're welcome to subscribe to them. All these events have ASL interpreters and are free. And we're very grateful for our ASL interpreters. We'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors who moved very quickly with us when our festivals got canceled and agreed to support this platform for our Indigenous people worldwide. National Endowment of the Arts, Westaff, Westaff Cares, New Mexico Arts, New Mexico Humanities Council, and National Endowment of Humanities. And as always, we are very grateful for our Indigenous Ways board members and individual donors. We have been surprised. Somebody out there, an anonymous person, nominated us for the New Mexico magazine's Heroes, New Mexico Heroes. So we were able to have a publication for the month of November. You can go to our Facebook, Indigenous Ways 501c3. There's a link there for the article about the work of Indigenous Ways. So, our next concert series that we're very excited about. November 21st, we are going to honor Bill Miller and friends. We're celebrating Native American Heritage Month. So, this is a fundraising concert for Bill Miller. And we're going to speak to him for all his work and all the years and the songs and the roads and trails that he's done for our Indigenous people to allow windows into our worlds through his amazing songwriting. We have our beautiful sister, Narissa Bond, who's based in Long Beach, Virginia. We have our brother, Wade Fernandez, who comes from Wisconsin. He's the Menominee. And we also have our beautiful Shelley and Phoebe, beautiful Shelley Morning Song from and Fabian Fontanelli. They're based in the Zuni Pueblo. and they're all amazing musicians. We're also going to have a song or two from IndigenousWays, and we will have our ASL interpreters as well. This is Saturday, November 21st at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And to go on to the next topic, where our Black Mesa Mountain relief runs, we want to thank everyone who has contributed and participated to our 5 Black Mountain relief runs. We went this past Friday to Black Mountain, and it was absolutely successful, beautiful, amazing. Our elders on the mountain all got a box with needs for the wintertime, and we were able to deliver more 55-gallon water barrels with spigots at the bottom so the water comes out, hand washing stations, and we're going to continue doing that. We're going to stay connected with the chapter house up there. So, our Black Mountain Water Project raffle, I mentioned this beautiful background we have. Our beautiful sister, Julie Kaufman, who lives here in Santa Fe, hand stitched this blanket. Look at it here. It's two-sided, and we are going to be giving this away. And this is going to fund our sustainable water project on Black Mountain. It's threefold. One is getting the water barrels up there with the hand washing stations, getting to the chapter house, filling those barrels, getting our uncles on the mountain to deliver them. The second is to set up water catchments, more than the 55-gallon, but more like 1,000 to 2,000 water catchment containers. And the third one is also to get some drilling on that mountain, which is about 1,500 feet above the surrounding lands on the nation. Black Mountain is way up there. So this is a long-term project we're involved with, and that's what the raffle of this blanket is going to go towards. If you want to purchase these tickets, they're $10 each or $50 for 6. You can check this out at IndigenousWays.org. Very easy. Go to donate, click on that, and there's a link for this raffle. Please support it. It's on the homepage as well. So we want to make it as easy as possible for people to access this raffle and get as many as they want. So we will be doing the drawing, whether we sell 15 or whether we sell 1,000 tickets. We're having the raffle on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at this time during this commercial break. Thank you all for that. And of course, Julie Kaufman, thank you for that as well. You can also donate to our PayPal. You can donate to our Indigenous Ways website. You can send us a good old snail mail as well if you'd like. All of those will be accepted. And we'd like to go ahead and bring everybody on. Whoever wants to show their faces and say hi and acknowledge our beautiful brother, Elder Frank. Come on in, everybody. And if you're on social media, you're welcome to post a comment, which I will share with Frank. Does anybody want to come on? Okay. Hello, Donna. Hey, Antonio. Judy. Richard. Christina Bueno. All right. Donna, would you like to get started? Oh,
there we got it. New technology here. So Frank, you're very impressive. You've been around the world, telling everybody what they really need to hear. I was delighted to hear all your words. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the important thing is not only with me being able to tell people things, but being able to listen and hear all of the different things that happen all the other places around the world, and to hear what other cultures have to say. I was impressed. We had a signing ceremony for a treaty here, the United League of Indigenous Nations Treaty. We did a first signing at the Lummi Nation with 11 nations, and then later on we had another bunch signed up in Denver at the National Congress of American Indians. And the people who did the ceremony were Aborigines from Australia. They came to do our opening ceremony. and
Wow.
they actually, when they dance, they use boomerangs. They hold one up one way and one the other way, and they clack them back and forth to make the rhythm to dance with. And I tell people, and this is not much of an exaggeration, that you could really see the difference in generations, because the elder was dressed in about half a yard of cloth and about a gallon of paint. And progressively, there was more cloth and less paint until he got down to the grandson, who had a red bandana on and a t-shirt and jeans, you know. But they danced to the four directions, and
Wow.
they did the same kind of ceremony that we would have done, but they were doing it and it was really, it's the idea of listening to people and seeing what they do and understanding those things, those common things that we have. It's just so important. So I'm glad that you appreciated the comments.
Thank you very much, Donna, for your comment. And real quickly, we got a Shelley Morning song and Fabian Fontanelli, amazing musicians out of Zuni Pueblo, said that absolutely wonderful with 3 hearts and the sign in the, that emoticon. So, Antonio, would you like to share some words tonight?
Yeah, when you were talking about the fishing rights and the water rights up in Michigan, it brought me back to a long time ago when I attempted to go to college for the first time, but didn't do too well. But it was during that time up in Seattle, during the Bolt decision of fishing rights. And that all the passion that happened up at University of Washington and all around, and people that were so fervently, for the fishing rights, and it was interesting. My memory serves me because my brother was writing. He was a journalist during that time, and he was writing how he thought it was amazing how many non-native people joined the native people during that time then they needed to keep their inherent rights for fishing, because it was not only the cultural part, but this saying, you said it almost. He says, "The fish is not for us to eat. The fish is not for us to see. The fish is who we are. We are the fish, and the fish are us." And I'll never forget how that was said during a gathering, and it was just wonderful. And you made me remember that. And that was when I started looking toward Indian law and stuff when I went back to school later on. Yeah. So thank you for helping me remember that.
Well, thank you. One of my heroes, and I got later to consider him a good friend at the end of his life, was Billy Frank, who fought so hard for the fishing rights there in the Northwest. And what I liked about Billy, first of all, every time you saw him and he saw you, it was like he'd never seen you before, but boy, he was just so glad to see you. And he'd curse a blue streak while he was saying all these smiling things, and just this amazing things that he did. I just loved that man and what he was able to do, and the work that he did in helping to bring about some of those cases that were fought in the Northwest. I was really impressed with that, and I really appreciate you sharing that the statements about the fish there, because that is exactly what I was saying, and you can see those thoughts are not just from the Great Lakes, but they're from people all over.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you very much, Antonio and Frank, for your comments. And would Judy Shapiro like to share?
So, Frank, when did I meet you? Like almost 20 something years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At NCAI in Santa Fe.
In Santa Fe, that's right. Finding out that we had worked with the same people, one of whom I liked and he didn't, or the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other way. I don't like to miss an opportunity to listen to Frank, and this is just another one of those good opportunities. The water song that Frank sang, I've been trying to teach him the one in Hebrew for how many years?
Well, several years now.
We do cross-cultural stuff, and it's a great pleasure. We're both of us right now taking a break from a conference that we're both attending but not at. So we're sort of mid-think about many things, and this is a nice break from that kind of thinking. This is breathing. This is good. And thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Judy and Frank. And definitely would like to hear from Richard.
Well, I came in again 5 minutes late, but everything I heard was wonderful. I'm from Ohio, the Shawnee and the Miami people.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you mentioned a Kiowa friend of mine recommended the Native Science book to me.
Mhm.
Now, I always knew that Native people knew, oh, shit, no more than us white people. I just always knew that. We may have known it at one time, but somewhere along the line, we forgot. So that's why I've always thought it was very important for people, not just white people, but everybody, to listen to the indigenous people of the world, all around the world. And I'm fortunate enough to live here in San Francisco, and I live on Ohlone land. And they're struggling here too. They're trying to get their land. Of course, they're not going to get it all back, but have a presence. And I just want to say to you, thank you. Thank you for sharing what you know. It's extremely important. And I think the things that have happened here in the recent years have made some white people and some people from other areas to finally come to a realization that indigenous people have something to say, because we have not been listening. It's like Thomas Bianca, for years, the Hopi, went around all around the world, telling people, warning them, letting them know, telling them of the prophecies, and their ears were shut. Now, some are beginning to realize, I hope it's not too late, that yes, they're right. So thank you again. I love coming to this. I just love it. And I want to thank Tosh, and I'm having a brain fart right now. But I want to thank Indigenous Femme for doing
Elena.
everything. Elena, thank you. I'm sorry. I want to thank them as well for doing this. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. I appreciate that.
All right. And Christina Bueno. Thank you very much, Richard and Frank. Christina Bueno, would you like to share?
I kind of missed half the program. I did come in late. I did catch the conversation where we were talking about the whitefish. And I got a little distracted, I'll admit. But you were mentioning the whitefish and the relationship between the fish, Mother Earth, and humans, and that relationship. And I just caught that piece of wisdom, but I very much enjoyed being reminded of that. And I do support the environment. I do support fishing rights and environmental rights because, of course, without the fish, we don't have anything. We are the fish, and with the fish, we have survival. And so that's how that relationship is defined.
Yeah, and as you because I not only talked about fish, but also about how the fish is just part of the picture, but also that whole relationship with fish is also a relationship with the trees, with the medicine plants, with the earth, with all of the creatures that we share this wonderful creation with. It's that that relationship is very broad, and all of these are relatives, and it's that relationship of how we help take care of them and they take care of us. We have gifts for each other. There's things that we have, and that's really the essence of that. So thank you for your comments.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for adding that little piece for me. And I'm also very grateful that Indigenous Ways has interpreters. Every time I come, the interpreters are here and I have access to what is being shared, and I really enjoy the moment. So I'd like to thank you for the interpreters, Tosh and Elena as well. Both of you, thank you. Yes, much love.
Thank you so much, Christina and Frank. And there's two more people I'd like to acknowledge. Caleb, would you like to say anything this evening?
This is not tonight.
Okay, thanks, Caleb, for being here. We sure appreciate you. And my sister, Michelle Redman, would you like to say something this evening, Missy?
Sure. Why not? Hi, thank you, Frank, for your presentation. It was fascinating, and thank you for representing us in all these big events that are affecting the world, our climate, the way people consider, our generations, the 7 generations. And I'm Navajo from the Navajo Nation, and we very much believe that the earth and the animals and the people, everything around us is our family, and that we are caretakers of each other, that we all take care of each other, and we have that respect that you talked about. And that's very important, and it's very important to think about that the community and everything is having a relationship to everything, but also, thinking about how we are going to work with one another and making a plan and then putting that plan into action. So with a lot of the things that you were talking about, it really made me feel like, as Native people, for those of us that are activists in this world, that we are, getting our voices heard finally, that people are starting to take seriously our traditional ways and teachings. And what a huge turnaround from in history, from the oppression and assimilation and, trying to almost extermination, and then to be able to survive and just be able to rejuvenate ourselves in everything that we have and maintain what we have so that we can carry it forward, the wisdom of our ancestors, which we carry with us because it's a very important part of our tradition. So thank you for sharing that, and I really enjoyed all of it. It just filled my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate those wonderful comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Missy, and thank you, Frank. I wanted to acknowledge our sister, Angelina Owillo. I believe she's in Seattle. Angelina, we love you. Thank you for being with us tonight on Facebook. And I'd like to acknowledge Memorial Day, our veterans in the spirit world, our veterans that are still living, that have been to serve in our military and also to protect our homelands, and definitely to our current military members that are out there protecting our homeland. So thank you all very much. We love you, and happy Memorial Day, everybody, and honoring every veteran. Thank them for their selfless service to this country, this beautiful country. Like to definitely give a round of applause always to our beautiful ASL interpreters, Zoel and Chris. You two have really been very, very consistent and persistent. And thank you for being committed to Indigenous Ways' virtual events and concert series. And we look forward to seeing you next week again. So we're very grateful for that. We want to thank all of you for your time. We want to thank all of you that have Zoomed in. We want to thank everybody on social media. And we also want to let you all know that we are being recorded, and you can check this out in 48 hours. Thank you all very much. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the evening. And let's give it up for Frank Ettawageshik. Yeah.
Very good.
Tell your wife we said thank you too for being a part of the Call to Voices for Native Women. That was a fun project, and she was the second speaker.
Yeah, she really appreciated the opportunity to do that and was really excited to see the final product come out.
Yes, and our beautiful little sister Zoe was on that too, and so was Missy.
Mhm.
And so thank you all, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday. Stay safe out there. And Frank, I need to give you a call right after this. Thank
Okay.
you, everybody.
Yep.
Much love.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Zoe. Ah, are you hungry? Hang on, stop. Turn it off. Still on.